Okay. Rabbi Yochanan ben Gidda testified that a deaf-mute girl whose father married her off can be divorced with a get, and that a minor, the daughter of a non-Kohen who was married to a Kohen, may eat truma. And if she dies, her husband inherits her. And that for a stolen beam, which was built into a large building, he shall take its value for the sake of penitence, and that a stolen sin offering 12 status, whose status was not known to the public, atones for the sin of the altar. There were no extortionists of land in Judea in the time of those slain at war. From the time of the slain at war and onward, there were extortionists there. However, if one bought from the extortionist and then bought from the owner, his purchase is void. From the owner and then from the extortionist, his purchase is valid. If he bought from the husband and then bought from his wife, his purchase is void. But from the wife and then from the husband, his purchase is valid. And this is the original ruling. The court came and after them and said, one who buys from an extortionist gives the owner 1/4. When is this? When they do not have with what to buy. But if they have with what to buy, they take precedence over any person. Rebbe convened a court and they voted and acted that if it would remain with the extortionist 12 months, whoever is first to buy it acquires it and he gives the owner 1/4. A deaf mute gestures and is gestured for Ben Becerra. However,
is it a gesture? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yes.
Just
go ahead.
Go ahead from the beginning again.
A deaf mute gestures and is gestured to Ben Becerra. However, says
no. Ben Becerra is a new sentence.
Oh, not over here. They have a semicolon.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, right. So that's a pause. Right. Ben Becerra is.
Okay, I'm going to fix this over here. Okay, go. A deaf mute messages and is gestured to. Ben Becerra, however, that makes sense. Ben Becerra, however, says he moves his lips and is communicated with by means of lip movements and transactions involving chattels. Young children's purchases are purchases and their sales are sales and transactions involving chattels. Okay.
Okay. So now we say Elu Dwarim Amru Mipnei Darchei Shalom. So there were certain takanas which we're going into now. That were made because of keeping the peace. Okay, we say this because we were talking just a minute ago about takanas that Chazal made with the Sikrikon and with the Marish Hagazel, right? So now we're going on with further things that Chazal said in order to preserve peace between people. So the most famous one here is the first one over here, Kohen Koreh Rishon, Achrav Levi, Achrav Yisrael. I said it is a fixed rule that you must always call the Kohen first to the Torah, then a Levi, then a Yisrael. And it's not even up to the Kohen to be Mavater. Because like normally, if you're sitting in benching, and you want to be Mechabed the Kohen to do the benching. He says, no, there's a Talmud Chacham over here. Let him bench. That's totally legit. There's no obligation to call the Kohen to bench. It's a good thing. But if there's a Talmud Chacham, he should come before the Kohen. But when it comes to the public Torah reading, that is a hard and fast rule that you're not allowed to change, because otherwise, you start having rebels. Somebody, the Kohen says, no, I want the Talmud Chacham. And they say, he's a Talmud Chacham. What about me? Aren't I Talmud Chacham? No, it's like, you just don't.
That's interesting, because I've been in Minyanim, and where, for example, there was a when I was at the Kotel one time, there was a Kohen, but there was a bar mitzvah boy, and someone mentioned to the Kohen about the bar mitzvah boy that he was putting on his tefillin. He was going to, his first time, laning, I guess, and so he walked away, and
Oh, no. Okay, so this is a different situation where you have exactly one Kohen in the minyan, and you want to give an aliyah to more than one person who's not a Kohen. So there, if the Kohen wants to be nice, he can absent himself while they're calling up a Kohen. So they say Kohen, and they say Enkan Kohen, Yamod, Abachur, Mitzvah, etc. in Bimkom Kohen. And then once he said his bracha, the Kohen comes back in and says it's too late to call the Kohen now. That's a different thing. Right. That's where he's physically absenting himself. But if there are, if he stays there, he can't be Mavater and say, no, let them call him instead of me.
Okay. All right.
Okay. mipnei darchei shalom. Ma'arvin bebayis yashan. So let's say you have a group of houses together who are making an eruv between them. Okay, you must always keep using the same house to store the bread in. Why? Because we don't want it to look like people are suspicious of that house, and they say, oh, maybe because he stole the bread, or maybe because they'll see that there's no bread in that house, and they'll say, oh, maybe these people are carrying without having an eruv. So they just keep it always in the same place. If you have a number of cisterns that people have dug for storage of water, and there's one river going past, and we got to fill up all the cisterns from the river. Always say that the borshu karov la'ama mismale rishon, so the one that is closest always gets to be filled up first. So you don't have this, you don't have a fight over, hey, no, I want to fill up my one first.
Right.
It's a seder. Mipnei darchei shalom. Mitzudos chaya ba'ofos v'dagim yesh v'hem mishum gazel mipnei darchei shalom. So when we have traps, when people have laid out traps to catch birds and fish, and now if the trap had a receptacle, then if a fish, let's say, got caught inside the receptacle, then there's no question that the receptacle, which belongs to Ruvain, acquires the fish on behalf of Ruvain. It's now inside his key. We're talking here about, let's say, a net that doesn't have a receptacle. Just fish got tangled inside the net. So it's not because it's not got a receptacle. Min Torah, that fish has not yet been acquired. So Shimon comes along and says, hey, this fish over here is hefker, I can grab it right now and take it. Okay, but what Chazal said, no. We don't want people to start coming to fights about this. It's Reuven's fair and square, even though he hasn't technically made a kinyan. His trap is the one that got the fish. Therefore, it must stay with him, and Shimon's not allowed to come and take it. However, it's just that we don't allow it lechachila. But if Shimon went ahead and took it, it's a weak takana that we wouldn't be able to extract the fish back from Shimon and force him to give it back to Reuven. But Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says gazel gamor. He says no. This is a strong takana that even if Shimon came and took it, we could force him to give it back. Okay. So our mentally incompetent class of cheresh shotiv akatan, since they don't have a das, they also can't make a good kinyan. So much like those traps. So if let's say a shoter comes and finds a metzia on the ground, he says, hey, let me pick that up. So he picks it up. And now Shimon comes along and says, hey, that's great. And he snatches it out of their hands. Says, you didn't make a kinyan because you're a shoter. Sorry.
Right.
All right. So then we say that's not allowed. Right. Once the shoter of the katan has picked something up, we don't allow people to come and take it off them. However, again, it's a weak gezerah according to Chazal. But with Rabbi Yossi Omer gazel gamor, he says even in that case too, if somebody went and stole it from the cheresh of a katan, the Beis Din would give it back. Ani haminakef barosh hazayis. So now, let's say you've got you're in a field that's now paya, let's say. So somebody left over a paya from their olive orchard, and the ani climbed up the tree. And he put a blanket on the ground. Right? He put a nice blanket on the ground. He climbed to the top of the tree and starts smacking the tree to get the olives to fall. But the olives fall onto the blanket, and somebody else walks past and says, "Well, you never made a kinyan. Those are just olives that fell out of the tree." Okay, now technically he's right, but again we say mipnei darchei shalom. Mashitachtav gazel mipnei darchei shalom. You can't steal it from under the tree. Rabbi Yossi Omer gazel gamor, and he again says that if somebody did go ahead and steal it, we would force him to return them. Ein memachin biyad aniyei goyim beleket v'shitcha u'bapea mipnei darchei shalom. And furthermore, if poor goyim come and want to take from the matanos laniyim, They want to take the leket shicha paya. Right, no problem. We don't prevent them. We don't say this is for Jews only because we want to preserve the peace with the non-Jews. The Darchei Shalom on one hand, Ava is another big concern that he might be poor and powerless, but if he goes back to his cousin, might not,
cousins.
yeah, it might not go so well. Okay. Mishna Tes, Masheles Isha Lechaverta. This Mishnah, by the way, is from Shvius. We've seen this before, that we say that a woman may lend to her friend Hachashuda ala Shvius, even though her friend is not 100% Shemitah from. Okay, but she can lend her Nafa, Kavara, Rechaim, with a tanor, a sieve, and a sifter, and a hand mill and an oven. Even though these are things that could be used for asur malachas during Shvius, nonetheless it has a mutar use. So you say, okay, you can use it. But you cannot come and sift and sort with her because she's now if she's using it, if you see that she's using it for an Isser purpose. You can't come and help her. Okay, so you can't lend a hand. You can lend the Amaretz things that have an ambiguous purpose, but you can't actually lend a hand to the Avera.
She says from when she pours the water.
We were not there yet. So just talking about Tuma and Tara now. That the Amaretz is not careful in Tuma and Tara. So the wife of the Chaver, who's particular about Tuma and Tara, can come and lend a hand with this woman all the way up to where the water goes in. Once she adds the water, you can't touch it with her because the Eishes Amaretz is assumed to be Tameh, and the water now will transfer the Tuma into the food. Since you cannot actively assist somebody in doing an avera. And all of this that you're permitted to do these favors for the Amei Aretz is just for the Darchei Shalom to preserve the peace between neighbors. And you are allowed to encourage goyim during the Shvius, even though the goyim they're out and working the land and doing all the things that Jews are not allowed to do during Shvius. Okay, but you can say, Shkoyach, have a good harvest. I hope things are going well for you. Have a lo yedei Yisrael. But if a Jew is doing that, you're not allowed to say anything friendly or to encourage him to do asur malachas. V'shoalim b'shloman mipnei darchei shalom, and you greet the goyim and you're nice to them and everything because of darchei shalom. Okay. Perek Vav, HaOmer, Hiskabel get zel ishti. So now we move back to our original subject.
I'm listening. I'm just doing something over here. I'm listening to everything you're saying.
Right. So we're moving back to our original subject of Gittin. And normally a get is given from a husband to a wife. The husband has to give it. The wife has to receive it. Okay.
Right.
But now we're introducing the shaliach. So a man can give a get to a shaliach and say, give this to my wife, please. And he becomes what's called a shaliach holacha. He's now a shaliach to take the get and give it. Okay. Likewise, in the other direction, a woman can appoint a shaliach to receive a get. And once the get is in the hands of the shaliach, it's as if it's in her hands because we have a principle that the shaliach yado ki yada. Okay, so she and the shaliach has becomes the proxy for the shaliach. Okay, now we're going to see some interesting cases of what happens to the status of the shaliach. So Omer hiskabel get ze leishti. If the man uses the lashon, receive this get please on behalf of my wife. No, it doesn't say it quite like that. I'm translating badly from the Hebrew. Hiskabel. Receive this get to my wife. Okay. Or "Holech get ze leishti." Take this get to my wife. Okay. Is he since the wording is a little bit unclear, and it sounds like he's appointing him as a shaliach for his wife? A little bit. It's not 100% clear. The assumption is the Mishna says, "Imrata lachzor yachzor." If he wants to take it back and say, "You know what? I've changed my mind. Give me back the get." Now, this is the difference. If it's his shaliach who is saying, "Take the get to my wife," then he's allowed to rescind his shliachos. However, if the shaliach is a shaliach of the wife, and then when he receives it, it's as if the wife has received it and he can't give it back because she's now divorced the moment he gives it over. So the Mishnah says in these cases, if he wants to rescind it, he can, which means that this is still his shaliach, even though his wording sounds a little bit like he appointed the shaliach as his wife's shaliach. We assume that it's his shaliach, okay, and therefore he can still rescind the shlichus. Isha she'amra his kabel geti. But if the woman said to the shaliach, "Go and receive my get for me," if the husband wants to rescind it, he may not. Once the shaliach has received it, it's a done deal. So now let's say the woman sent a shaliach to the husband to receive the get. And now the Baal looks at the shaliach and says, "I don't want you to receive it on her behalf. Ella, holech, retain la. Take it and give it to her." So now what he's doing is he's saying to the shaliach, I'm not giving this to you as her shaliach, I'm giving it to you as my shaliach. So he can revoke the shlichus of the wife. He is and the shaliach is saying, "Okay, fine, I'll do it on your behalf instead of on her behalf," and therefore he's no longer a shaliach of the wife. Okay, therefore he may rescind the permission of the shaliach. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, "Af haomeres toldi giti imratza lachzor lo yachzor." So Rabban, he says that even if the woman says to the shaliach, "Tol li giti," even though she didn't say in the lashon of Kabbalah, rather she said it in the lashon of Natila, right? Instead of receive, is a take.
Right, take. Okay.
Subtle difference between receive and take. That is still considered her shaliach to receive it in, and when he receives it, it's keilu she's received it. Okay.
But he can't retract.
And the husband cannot retract. Once he's given the get into the hands of the wife's shaliach, it's in her hands.
Right. Okay. All right.
Gimel Aleph.
Any get which is written without specific intent for a particular woman is void. How is this exemplified? If a man was passing through the street and heard the sound of scribes dictating, "So and so is divorcing so and so from such and such a place," and he said, "That is my name and that is my wife's name," it is void for executing a divorce with it. Moreover, if he wrote a get with which to divorce his wife and he changed his mind and a man of his city met him and said to him, "My name is like your name and my wife's name is like your wife's name," it is void for executing a divorce with it. Moreover, if he had two wives whose names were alike and he wrote a get to divorce the elder, he cannot divorce the younger with it. Moreover, if he said to the scribe, "Write a get and I will divorce whichever one I want, it is void for executing a divorce with it.
He's got to have specific intent. He can't even deny and say, "Yeah, I'll decide later which one I want to divorce."
I can't see baby marrying to 2 or 3 wives who all have the same name. I just can't do.
Look, it is really a hypothetical kind of.
Right, I know, but you could really get in a lot of trouble. So yeah. One who writes a sophim of Gittin must leave blank the space for the name of the man and the space for the name of the woman, and the space for the date on documents of loans. He must leave blank the space for the name of the lender, the space for the name of the borrower, the space for the amount of money, and the space for the date on bills of sale.
No, the space for the date. Semicolon. On bills of sale.
Okay, and the space for the amount of money and the space for the date. On bills of sale, he must leave blank the space for the name of the buyer, the space for the name of the seller, the space for the amount of money, the space for the field, and the space for the date. For the sake of the benefits involved, Reb Yehuda invalidates all of them, and Reb Elazar validates all of them except for Gittin. For it is written, "He shall write for her with specific intent for her." If one was bringing a get and lost it, if he found it immediately, it's valid. If not, it is void. If he found it in a pouch or in a case and he recognizes it, it is valid. One who brings a get and had left him old or ill may give it to her on the assumption that he is alive. The daughter of a non-Kohen who was married to a Kohen and her husband went overseas may eat truma on the assumption that he is alive. And if one sends his sin offering from overseas, it may be offered for the assumption on that he is alive.
Okay.
All right, Nazir.
Yeah.
You have time?
Yeah. Keep going. As there is Zion base.
Zion base. For contamination from the following sources of tumor, the Nazir must shave for a corpse, or for an olive bulk of a corpse, or an olive bulk of netzel, or a ladle full of decayed corpse, or the spinal column, or the skull, or a limb severed from a corpse, or a limb severed from a living body that has on it sufficient flesh, or half of a cob of bones, or half a log of blood. Whether the contamination is transmitted by contact, carrying, or a roof, or for tumor from a bone for the size of a barley grain, whether its contamination is treated by contact or by carrying. For these, a Nazir shaves, sprinkles on the third and seventh day, forfeits the previous days, and does not resume counting until he becomes tahor and brings the sacrifices. But for a tumor transmitted by branchy canopies or protrusions, or a field in which a grave had been plowed over, or the land of the nations, or the coffin over, or the coffin cover, or the coffin of a quarter, the coffin, or a quarter log of blood, or a tent, or a quarter cob of bones, or utensils that touch a corpse, or the days of a Matzorah's counting, or the days of confirmed Saras, for these the Nazir does not shave, but is sprinkled on the third and seventh days, and he does not forfeit the preceding days, and he begins to count right away, and he has no sacrifice. In truth, they said the days of a Zav or a Zava are the days of confinement of the Matzorah, they are counted for him. Reb Eliezer said in the name of Reb Yeshua, any tumor from a corpse for which a Nazir shaves, one is liable because of it for entering the temple, or any tumor from a corpse for which a Nazir does not shave, one is not liable for it entering the temple. Reb Meir said this should not be more lenient than tumor contracted from a creeping thing. Akiva said, I reasoned before Eliezer, if for a bone the size of a barley grain, which does not contaminate a person by way of a roof, the Nazir shaves for touching it or carrying it. For a quarter log of blood, which contaminates a person even by the way of a roof, it is not clear that a Nazir should shave for touching it or carrying it. He said to me, what is this, Akiva? We cannot reason here by a kal v'chomer. When I came and related these things to Rabbi Yeshua, he said to me, you have spoken well, but so have they said as an oral law.
So it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So even though the logic was good, nonetheless there was a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, but that's not the halacha. Okay.
Yamos.
Yavamos, Yud Daled Ches. Is this the one where you've got one long Mishnah?
No, that was the one before. So I'm not sure exactly where we are, as I can't tell.
Okay, so it's the second last paragraph. Two competent brothers married to two unrelated sisters. One.
Oh, I have it right here. If two competent brothers were married to two unrelated women, one competent and one a deaf mute, and a competent husband of the deaf mute wife died, what should the competent husband of the competent wife do? He should marry her, and if he then wishes to divorce her, he may. If the competent husband of the competent wife died, what should the competent husband of the deaf mute wife do? He may perform either kalitza or yibum. If two brothers, one a deaf mute and one competent, were married to two unrelated women, one a deaf mute and one competent, and the deaf mute husband of the deaf mute wife died, what should the competent husband of the competent wife do? He should marry her. If he then wishes to divorce her, he may. And if the competent husband of the competent wife died, what should the deaf mute husband of the deaf mute wife do? He should marry her, and he can never divorce her. Okay. A woman who went with her husband overseas, and there was an amity between him and her, and peace in the world, and she came and said, my husband died, she may marry. Or if she said, my husband died, she may be taken in yibum. If there was amity between him and her and a war in the world, or if there was a conflict between him and her and peace in the world, and she came and said, my husband died, she is not believed. Rabbi Yehuda says she is never believed unless she comes weeping and with her clothes torn. They said to him, in either case, she may marry.
You don't just believe people if they know how to act well. Okay, next.
Okay, Shabbos.
Shabbos, yeah.
Shabbos. Yud Beis Dad Aleph.
Yud Gimel Daled, but okay.
Because I read wrong. Okay. One who writes two letters, whether his right hand on his left or whether one count.
No. We're in, it's Yud Gimel Daled. We're talking about the shear of Melaben.
I thought you said Yud Beis.
No, Yud Gimel. You said Yud Beis, and I corrected you.
All right, Yud Gimel Daled. Thank you. Reb Eliezer says one who weaves three threads at the beginning or adds one thread to the woven fabric is liable. But the comment say whether at the beginning or at the end.
Hold on. No. We're Daled. Mishna Daled.
Oh, you said Yud Gimel. Okay. All right. The minimum measure for liability of one who whitens, combs, dyes, or spins is double the width of a sit. And one who weaves two threads, his minimum measure for liability is a full sit. Rabbi Yehuda says one who traps a bird by driving it into a closet or a deer into a house is liable. But the comments say one who is liable for driving a bird into a closet or a deer into a house is a courtyard or a vivarium. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says not all vivarium are alike, and this is the rule. If it requires further trapping, one is exempt. If it does not require further trapping, it's liable. One is liable. If a deer entered a house and one locked the door in front of it, he is liable. If two people lock the door, they are exempt. If one person alone could not lock the door and the two locked it, they are both liable. And Reb Shimon, however, exempts them.
Okay, that's that. All right, we've got
Taharos.
let's go.
Okay, I have in Taharos, I have Hey Vav.
Yeah, that's good.
Regarding two loaves, one tameh and one tahor. If someone ate one of them and prepared taharos, and his friend came and ate the second loaf and prepared taharos, Rabbi Yehuda says, if each of them inquired separately, both are ruled tahor. If both inquired together, both are ruled tameh. And Rabbi Yossi says, either way, both are ruled tameh. Regarding someone who is sitting in the public domain and one came and thread on his clothes or spit and he touched his saliva, with regard to his saliva, we burn truma. But with regard to his clothes, we follow the majority. If he was sleeping in the public domain and then woke, his clothes are tameh as a midras. These are the words of Reb Meir, but the Kachamim with them tahor. If someone touched a person at night and it is not known whether the person was alive or dead, in the morning he arose and found him dead, Reb Meir rules that he is tahor, but the sages rule that he is tameh, because all uncertainties of tumah are decided according to the status at the time of their discovery. If there is one deranged female in the town, or a Kenite woman, or a female Kuthin, all the spittle in the town is tameh. Regarding someone upon whose garments a woman tread, or who sat with him on a beat, if she recognizes him as someone who eats truma, his garments are tahor, but if not, he must ask her.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Three.
That's it.
And Menachos.
Okay, Vav Zayin. The Oma offering was sifted through 13 seas, the Shtei Halechem through 12, and the Lechem Hapanim through 11. Reb Shimon says there was no set amount, rather he brought flour that was sifted as much as necessary, as it is stated, and you shall take fine flour and you shall bake it until it is sifted as much as necessary. Okay, next one. Okay, if the Toda offering consisted of five Yerushalayim sars, which are 6 wilderness sars, or 2 ephahs, which, and the ephah is 3 sars, or 20 isaron, or 10 for 11 loaves, and 10 for matzah, 10 for the 11 loaves, 1 isaron per loaf, 10 for the matzah, and the matzah consists of 3 varieties, kalos, rakim, and revukia. Thus, they are 3 1/3 isaron for each variety, and 3 loaves per isaron. In the Jerusalem measure, there are 30 kav, 15 for the 11 loaves and 15 for the matzah. 15 for the 11 loaves, 1.5 kavs per loaf, 15 for the matzah, and the matzah consists of 3 varieties, kalos, rikikin, and revuka. Thus, there are 5 kavs for each variety, 2 loaves per kav. The initiation offerings were brought like the matzah of the Toda offering, kalos, rikikin, and revuka. That of the Nazor consisted of 2 parts of the matzah of the Toda offering, kalos and rikikin, but has no revuka. Thus, it consists of 10 Yerushalayim kavs, which equals 6 esarons in the excess. From all of them, he would take 1/10 of a truma, as it is stated, and he shall bring it from one of every offering as a truma to Hashem. One, that he may not take broken from every offering, that all the offerings should be equal, and that they may not take from one offering for another. To the Kohen who throws the blood of Shalomin offering shall it belong, and the remainder is eaten by the owner.
I can't, and I gotta run to shul.
Run to shul. Have a great day. Enjoy. Have a great
Have a
Shabbos.
wonderful Shabbos.
See you Sunday. Be well. Bye.